Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Krina Panchal, and I have with me Mahira Furniturewaala, and we are second year students of VIT Vellore, and we are here today. We are part of the fourth dimension TFZ, the tech team of IIT VIT, and we bring you WebDev 101. This session will help you get started with web development. So first, let's look at the checklist of today's event. We will start with introduction to web development, and then we will have a hands-on project using the technologies, the front-end technologies. Basically, we will have a project about to-do list, and then we will get into the back-end development. We will just briefly understand what is back-end web development, and then we will go to Git and GitHub. We will introduce you to Git and GitHub. Okay. So now first, we all have a fair idea that what is web development. So web development is basically the process of creating a web page. Now, before we get into it any deeper, let's look at the classifications of web development. So firstly, that we have the client side. It is the site. It is the side of a website which a client or a user can access it, and we use the front end technologies in this client side. Next, we have the server side, and here this side of the web page cannot be accessed by the user, and we use backend technologies here. And next up, we have the database. So basically, we just store the data. It is basically the storage of the data which we use in a website. Okay, so now we will start with the front end part of web development. So basically, three languages are used in front end web development. So they are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we will start with HTML. HTML is hypertext markup language. You might have studied about HTML in your school as well. So this is basically, it helps in creating the structure or the skeleton of the web page. So like just the basic thing. So HTML is a markup language. So now I will firstly show you a website. This is the first website which was created by Tim Berners-Lee in 1991. So this website is created only using HTML. So there is no CSS or nothing used. So this provides the structure for a web page, or structure or a skeleton. Now let's look at the boilerplate for HTML. So this is the boilerplate of HTML. These are tags which are used in HTML, like this doctype HTML. So in HTML, basically, this is the opening tag, and with a slash, this is a closing tag. We will learn about these tags and stuff as in when we start with our to list project. Now coming to CSS. So, and also the HTML file is saved as .html. When we start with the project, we will save this HTML file as .html. So now coming to CSS. CSS is cascading style sheets. So now CSS is basically used for styling our web page, for styling our elements. Now I'll show you. So this is the Flipkart website, and it is much more better to view than this website which had only HTML. Its colors and everything is due to the use of CSS. So yeah, so CSS is basically used styling of HTML elements to add colors and animations and stuff. Now, let's discuss about CSS selectors. So there are three types of CSS selectors. One is universal, class, and ID. So now the general CSS structure is, first we will mention the selector, and then we will give curly braces, and we'll mention the property and value. So we will look into this when we start with the to-do list project. We will understand it, that how each we mention the selectors and how we go about it. Now coming to JavaScript. So basically JavaScript is a scripting language. It is a programming language which helps to add interactivity to the website. Now JavaScript is required to get response when buttons, and it is also used for dynamic styling. Now we are done with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML is basically the structure of the website. Then for CSS we use for styling of the website, and JavaScript adds interactivity to the website. For example, if you have created a button using HTML, then using CSS, you style it. You give some color to the button, you give some radius to the button, and then this JavaScript is used to get responses using that button. So I will show you a GIF. So this will help you understand better that what is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So this HTML, we created the structure. Then we gave some styling to make it look better. We use CSS and JavaScript we use for interaction. Now the robot is interacting and has some action to it. So now we will start with our simple to-do list project. So this was just a basic idea about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So now, as and when we select, you will get a better understanding how to go about the front end part. So we will use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and make a to-do list. So now Mahira will show you how to do
Okay,
it.
so hi everyone. My name is Mahira, and we're going to start making the to do list. So, first comes we all have to download VS Code in case if you don't have it already. Yeah, so just go and download VS Code for whatever operating system you currently are on. I am on Windows, so I have VS Code installed for Windows. Already as free as me. So let me know in the chat section what is your favorite programming language in the meantime while others get it downloaded. Okay, so I think I can move ahead. So next, what you're gonna do is I'll be using the desktop as my root directory. So you can just go anywhere in your PC and create a new folder. So since we're making a to-do list, I'll name it as to-do list, and I'll open the folder. Now, if you have already installed VS Code once it's in your system, you can just right click and you should get this option of open with code. If not, then you can just simply open VS Code and go to the file section and open file in whatever directory you have stored your folder for the to-do list. Okay. Next, once you have VS Code installed, I want you to go to the extensions tab, and there you're going to have to install this extension called Live Server. Yeah, so this is how it looks. Quickly install it. It should not take you more than 30 seconds, I guess. I'll wait for another 30 seconds and then we can continue. Create a folder for your to-do list, open the folder, open VS Code in that folder and get Live Server installed. Okay, so I guess everyone might have been done with these three simple steps. Again, install VS Code, go to any particular directory in your PC, create a folder there, call the to-do list, and open VS Code there and install Live Server. So let's begin. So first, index.html. Okay, this is going to okay, I'm sorry. Index.html. So this is going to be the file where we write all of our HTML. So as Trina said, HTML is basically the skeleton to your website. So a few things about HTML before I begin. So the basic boilerplate or the structure of HTML is something like this. There will be an HTML tag. Yeah, so what is an HTML tag? HTML tag is something that you would be wrapping around these brackets. So anything that is around these brackets is called a tag. So there will always be one opening tag and a closing tag. The closing tag will have this / and that indicates the closing tag. So this is the basic structure of an HTML tag, of an HTML file. There'll be the HTML tag, then there'll be the head, and then below the head will be the body. This is the basic structure of an HTML file. You can also say in the head there would be a title and lots of other things. But because we are under a time constraint, so we will go for a shortcut. We will use emit. So everyone just enter the exclamation mark and hit enter. So this is what should appear for you, the boilerplate code for HTML. So that's what emit does. Is basically it's going to give you it's a shortcut for getting boilerplate for any other programming language. It's HTML being a markup language, but it will give you the boilerplate code and then we can begin. So I'll wait for another 10 seconds if y'all are lagging behind or if y'all have anything to ask up till here. Okay, so I think I can continue. All right, so let me go line by line and explain what exactly each of these lines means. So Doctype HTML. Okay, so whenever we're building a website, your HTML page is rendered to the browser that you're opening your website in. This Doctype HTML will basically tell the browser that this file that I'm rendering, this file that I'm giving to you, is an HTML file. That's what Doctype HTML is supposed to mean. Next comes HTML lang is equal to en. This literally means that the language that we're using is English. And then comes the head tag. So as I said, HTML is divided into there'll be the wrapper HTML tag, then there will be the head tag, and then there will be the body tag. So in the head tag, we include information about a website, and that is called meta, right? That's what meta means, information about information, or rather data about data. So it's giving the browser information regarding a website. So what information is that? The first one, the first meta tag here is char set. So char set is basically specifying what is the character encoding. So here we're using Unicode, so it is UTF-8. So that is char set. Then HTTP equivalent. Websites can be opened in multiple browsers, right? But there are few that are outdated or not compatible with the current versions of HTML or CSS or JavaScript that we're using. So this is what we're specifying here, that no matter what browser that we open this website in, it should be compatible with all of those browsers and all of the versions of those browsers. Okay, next comes viewport. So again, just like you can view your website in different browsers, you can also view your website in devices with different dimensions, right? I can be having a 15.6 inch laptop, or slightly smaller in dimension or larger. So it should be compatible in terms of its viewport, that is its width and its height. So an initial scale is equal to 0 basically means that the first time we're rendering a website, the zoom level should be at 100%, that is 0. That at the initial level is what it means. Title. So here we can make some changes. So title of our website is the to-do list. Okay, so make sure that after every change you make, you are saving your website, Control S, so that all of whatever you're going to preview, it will be visible live. All right. So we can start here. Okay. As I told you, we installed this extension. Once again, I'll go and show you live server. So if you've installed this, you should be getting this tab down here, go live. So I'll be clicking here. And this is what I get. Why is it blank? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Why is it blank? It's simply because our body is empty. We haven't included anything in our body. All that we've done up till now is set up the boilerplate and given information about our website and included the title. So this title will definitely show out here, to-do list. Okay. So now let's start with the body. Okay, before I start with the body, something about a few more tags. So there's something known as an H1 tag. H1 tag basically specifies a heading. So heading tags go from H1 to H6, H1 being the largest and H6 being the smallest. So for example, if I will include a to-do list here, this is how it should look. Okay, now another thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to open both these tabs side by side so that I don't have to keep switching between both these tabs again and again. And if you want your code to be wrapped, just Alt Z so that all of it can be viewed at once. Okay, so as you saw, H1 was the largest tag. So I got this to-do list out here in, you can say, a larger font. If I used H2, it got smaller. If I use H6, it got even smaller. So this is going to be the title to our website. the header rather, you can say. So that's what this is used for. So that is our to-do list. Next, what is a div? A div is basically, you can say a div is a container. It's something that a container sort of to wrap a section of text that we will be outputting on the website. So that's what a div is for. We have many such tags. Okay, so one is div, that is basically used to contain things. There can be images in this. It's a container, it's a box, so there'll be images, there can be text, there can be links, there can be anything in this. Another tag, I'll just quickly go through all the a few tags rather. A paragraph tag. So in this we basically include text, and then we have span. Again, out here we include text. We have anchor tags. Anchor tags are for links. Okay, so this href attribute that you see out here is basically specifying the link to which we want to redirect the user. You will write whatever the link is for. For example, if it's a link to YouTube, so I will just be including the link to YouTube out here simply, and when you click on the text that will appear here, you will be redirected to YouTube. Okay, so back to our project. All right, so as I said, div. This will be a container which will be containing the input. So when you're making a to-do list, you'll obviously want an input out here, right? About what is the task that you want to do. So for that, we're going to include it in a div tag. Now, another thing, what are classes and IDs? So classes is something that you would actually need in your CSS and JavaScript to be able to target a particular HTML element. So I will be giving this a class equal to container. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Between the quotes. Yes. Class is equal to container. Now, another thing to note that any one HTML element, they can have multiple classes. Okay, so the same container class, I can give it to another HTML element as well. If I make another div out here, this can also have a class of container. But when it comes to, again with the double quotes, I'm sorry, but I don't have to show that here. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to IDs, IDs are represented something like this. ID is equal to, let's say, to do. Now, ID is something that is exclusive to only one HTML element. This to do ID that I have given to this div tag, I cannot go and give it to any other element. It is exclusive only and only for this element. So that is the difference between classes and IDs. And the main purpose of using classes and IDs, you would actually probably understand it when we get to the CSS and the JavaScript. So for now, just go along with me. So we don't really need the idea. We'll just go with a class of container. Okay. Next, inside this container division, this division with the class of container, we will make an other division. And we're going to give this a class which is equal to add to do. All right. So these naming conventions, you want to go with something that really makes sense, because here I'll be inputting my to-do list. So add to do is something that, it does specify what I want to do. So always have meaningful classes and IDs. Otherwise, you're going to really get confused when you're on your CSS and JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to wait here for a bit and make sure that all of y'all are with me. I'll wait for 10 seconds or so. And make sure that you're saving your file every now and then, all right? Okay, I think I can go ahead. All right, so next comes the input tag. Okay, before that, let's just enter some text. Like I can give some lorem. So lorem is just, it's basically random text. So let me just give lorem 10 and let me show you how it looks. Okay, so for now, we haven't really shown anything besides this text that is there in our container and the nested tag of another add to do class division. All right, so yeah, now coming to the input tag. So how can we, let me save it again. So yeah. So how can we take input from a user on a website? So for that basically is what input tag is made. So input. Now the type specifies that what is the type of input that you're taking. This type can be text. If you're, for example, taking the person's name, address, university name or anything like that. Or it can be number if you're asking for a person's age, or a phone number, or it can be email if you're asking for a person's email. So there are different types of input tags, and that's what this type attribute out here specifies. Now, one other thing about input tag that you might have noticed, that up till now, whenever I was writing any tag, okay, for example, if I include another h1 tag here, it was auto closing. I had whenever I pressed enter, I got an closing tag for the h1 tag as well. But something about the input tag, we did not get any closing tag. Why is that so? It's because the input tag is a self-closing tag. Okay, so there are many such other self-closing tags. Even the image tag is self-closing, and there are, I think, even the I tag. I tag, we will be coming to that. So I tag is self-closing. So there are many such self-closing tags in HTML as well. Input tag being one of them. Okay, the next thing, placeholder. Now, what is placeholder? For now, let me just add a task. Okay, I'm always missing the double quotes. All right. So I control save, and you can see the live preview of my website. I got an input field out here, and here I have written add a task. So this is what the placeholder did. It just it's kind of a description as to what you should be adding inside the input tag. So that's what the placeholder does, because just having an input tag with nothing in it without specifying what it is for could be confusing for the user, right? So that's what the placeholder is for. Next, we obviously need to show a button, right? Like, I mean, I can input anything out here, but how am I going to submit? So for that, I need a button. So button is also a tag in HTML. And now to this button, coming to IDs, I'm going to give it an ID of add btn. Oh my god, I don't know why am I missing the double quotes every time. Okay, just give it an ID of add btn, and all right. Just complete till here. After this, there'll be a link that will be circulated in the chat section, and I want you all to just copy that link. Okay, so that link that will be circulated is for Font Awesome. So it's an icon library. I'm going to wait for 20 seconds, make sure that you all are with me, and then continue. Okay, so I think I can move ahead. So as I said, there should be a link that is circulated in the chat section, and that is something that we're going to be adding right before, right after our meta tag, or rather before our title tag, and we're going to add a script tag this time. So what is script tag? Just like we had HTML wrapping our entire HTML code, we have a script tag. Okay, so script tag will specify our JavaScript. I hope everyone is with me right now. Okay. Yeah, so as I said, script tag will specify your JavaScript. Okay, so anything I write between these two tags, the opening and the closing script tags, it's all going to be JavaScript. So for now, I'm going to be including a link to the JavaScript file that I need to extract the code from. So this is a CDN. Okay, it's a CDN to Font Awesome. Font Awesome is an icon library. So for this button that you see here, I'm going to be adding an icon of a plus sign, so that because I mean that would be a nice styling, right? So why not? So how you go about this is script, and then you give it an src. So src basically specifies the source, or the source folder, or the link to the source folder, rather, you can say. So Font Awesome, the link that I shared, it, as I specified, it's an icon library, and the link is a CDN to it. So yeah, just get this done quickly, get the script tag and the src, copy the link and paste it in the src. Okay, so I guess everyone must be with me by now. The next thing, between these two button tags, okay, out here, I'm going to include an I tag. Okay. I tag is basically for icons, as the name specifies. I tag is not only for icons; it can be used for a number of purpose. I mean, it's a multi-purpose tag, but the main one being for icons. So I'm going to give this a tag a class which is equal to fa plus. Again, I missed the double quotes. So just give this tag, and yeah, so you can see I got this plus out here, right? Why is that so? So you must be thinking, what is this fa plus? I mean, it just sounds like some sort of gibberish, but it basically, okay, so what fa plus is, it's the classes that are specified in the CDN that Font Awesome provides. So Font Awesome is a CDN, so it's a content delivery network. So they must be having some code that is set up on some other server, which includes some sort of JavaScript and some sort of inbuilt CSS variables. So that is what we're doing. So we are as I said, classes are basically used to target HTML elements. So there in their servers, they might have written some CSS for this class of FAS and FA plus. Now FAS is one class and FA plus is a separate class. So the way you write two classes in for one element is just add a space between them. So yeah, again, FAS is one class, FA plus is another class. So I think FA plus is still very self-explanatory, that we're referring to the icon of a plus, and FAS is probably for the styling that Font Awesome has provided on their servers, which we are using through the content delivery network. That is the link that you have entered here in the script tag. Okay. Yeah, so we are done with the input part, right? So now I can just enter something, and I have a plus here to be able to submit whatever I am inputting. So next we need to be able to, whatever I am inputting out here, there should be some area here, right, where I can see what I am entering, basically the tasks that I will be inputting out here in the input tag. So for that, after this container division is over, we will make another division. This division will be given a class of the to do's, because that is basically all the tasks that we have to do. Okay, so I don't know why am I missing this again and again. All right, I'll wait till you wait for another 20 seconds and then we can continue. Okay, I made a slight error. This division is not supposed to be given the class of to do. It's a to do's. It's for something else. Right now, just enter these two divisions and then we'll continue. Okay, so I think everyone will be with me by now. So the next thing we're gonna enter out here. So we have this division. Next thing, we will enter a UL. Now, what is a UL? UL tag stands for unordered list. So what we're going to be doing is that all the tasks that we will be entering out here, we'll be presenting it as a list. So for that, we need an unordered list. Now it can be there are different types of lists in HTML. So the other one being OL, that is ordered list. So for that, I will be getting a numbered list, but I do not want that here for my task. So I'll be going with an unordered list. And to this unordered list, I'm going to give the class that I previously mistakenly gave to the div of to-dos. Okay, so this UL will be given the class of to-dos, and inside this UL, now this is the list. So this is the wrapper for the entire list. Now inside the list, I need the list items. So for that, we have the li tag. All right, so let me just enter something out here, like again, some lorem ipsum. Okay, and I'm just going to replicate all of these LIs so that you have an idea of what exactly these LIs are doing. All right, yeah, so you can see, right, I have an unordered list. If I change this to OL, I think it would be numbered. Yeah, so this is what an OL would have done. It would have given me numbers, and if I am with a UL, it just gives me those bullets. So because I don't want them to be ordered, and this is how a list works. Okay, so this entire let me just inspect it and show it to you. This entire thing is your UL, as you can see here. And what's inside each and every item here is your li tag. So that's the list item. So I'm going to get rid of all the extra li tags and just go with one for now. And I don't want lorem ipsum in there, so I'll get rid of that as well. Okay, so now in the li tag, we'll be having another input element. What is this input element for? I'll let you know in a while. Just go along with me. And this input element will have the type of checkbox. So this is kind of going to be like a checkbox for anyone who has completed a task. So if I have completed a task, there'll be a checkbox here and I can just tick it specifying that I have completed the task. Okay, so that is what this input tag is for. And I'm going to give this input tag an ID of chatbox. No, sorry, check. Okay. Yeah. So this is what a checkbox does. Next, I'm going to have a span. Span, as I specified before, is for text, similar to paragraph. And yeah, so the span, I'm going to enter some hard-coded data for right now because as Krina mentioned previously while she was introducing web development to y'all, was that JavaScript is the actual brain of the website. Now, until I don't have JavaScript, I can't really dynamically enter something and expect it to be shown out here. So for now, I'm going to be hard-coding the task, and I'm going to be saying something for like complete DA. Okay, so that could be my task. Right, so that will just show up here and I'm going to hard code it for now, as I said, because I am not going to the JavaScript right now. That will be covered up later. Then you can dynamically enter whatever it is that you want. But for now, I'll be hard coding it. Okay. And then again, we need an I tag. What is this icon tag for? We will be having a delete button here in case if there's this task that you have completed or probably you don't want to do anymore. So just delete the task. That's what this icon tag is for. We're going to give this a class of FAS, FA, trash, alt, and delete. Oh, it didn't show up. Yeah, okay. It's probably the 10th time I'm making this error. Yeah. So as you can see, I got a delete icon out here, and that is going to the functionality of this would just be to delete a certain task that I might have entered. Okay, so we are more or less done with the HTML part of our code, and there will be a lot more that will be added later on when you're doing your JavaScript and your CSS. But yes, congratulations, you've completed your the HTML side of your website. So make sure you're saving it. And yeah, now I'm again going to wait for a minute or two. If you all have any doubts regarding the code as of now, if there's anything that you all missed out, I'll just check it, make sure that you all are with me. And after this, we'll be moving to the CSS. Okay, so I'll just pause here for 30 seconds. Okay, I think we can go ahead and start off with the CSS part of our website. So again, go back to the section of VS Code, add a file, call this file style.css. All right, so here's where you're going to write your CSS. As we mentioned before, styling is very essential to the website. Tina showed you all two separate versions of a website, right? The first one that was made, and then I think she showed you all a Paytm website that looked much better. Why is that so? It's because of styling, and that is done through CSS. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now, a few things before I start. A few things before I start with CSS. What are CSS selectors? So there are different types of CSS selectors. One is the universal selector. So what this one will do is this star specifies that just select everything. Okay, let me just open them side by side. Okay, so this star is basically wrapping the entire body, in fact everything out here. Okay, this star is your entire website. So if I want to give a background color, or you generally use this for some default, there are always some default settings that your browser has to the stylings as well. So that's called the user agent. So to get rid of that, this is what is generally used, the universal tag. So I will the other selectors as well. Next comes a class selector. So as I said, the main use of classes is when you want to target an HTML element. So now if I want to target this division, how will I be able to give it a particular styling and say that I just want to apply that style to this particular division whose class is container? So this is how I'll do it. Dot container. And then I'll write the styling for that container within these two brackets. So that's how you target a particular element in HTML. And the same similar thing goes for IDs. So for IDs, instead of a dot, we'll be using hash. And where have I given an ID? Yeah, I've given add btn out here. So I'll just go with hash add btn, and then here I'll be including all of the styling for the button, which has an ID of add btn. So those are the three primary selectors: the universal selector, the class selector, which is with a dot, and the ID selector, which is with a hash. Okay, so let's start with the styling. As I said, first thing, we need a universal selector because we want to get rid of some of the default settings that the browser already has for our website. We need to get rid of them. The first one, box sizing, border box. Okay, so this is the first one. Now, what is box sizing, border box? Again, this you will probably get more clarity when we go further or when you go at a slightly more advanced stage. It's so when you're giving a margin or a padding, okay, so the margin is basically space around a division. Again, as I'm saying, you will understand this a little later, but just hear me out for now. So when you're giving a certain amount of margin, which is kind of a space around a certain container, it tends to overflow beyond the bounds of the specified width or the specified dimensions of the container. Okay, so let's say, for example, I have a rectangle which is 2 by 2, and I have given it a margin all along, probably a 20 pixel, margin all along the rectangle. Now I have specified certain dimensions for the container. Now this 20 pixel margin will overflow. It will occupy more space than I have already specified for that rectangle. And this is what box sizing border box prevents. It will instead, what it will do is it will shrink whatever is inside that box so that the entire container can fit within those specified dimensions. I'm pretty sure this was not very clear, but you all will get more clarity on this as we move further. The next one, default setting for our for everything in our code. That's again the universal tag. So the next one is list style. List style. And list style type, and that is going to be none. Okay, now what this does, all right, so when I showed you, right, the UL, the list elements, they have this default bullets. We don't want them. Okay, it looks sort of shabby, so we don't really want them on our website. So to get rid of them, since that's the default setting, right, by default, before we even added any styling, this bullet was already there for us, but we do not want it. So for that, we will specify that in all of our HTML and in the entire website, the list style type should be none. That is, we don't want it to be, numbered or having bullets or anything like that. Okay. Now, yeah, again, make sure that you're saving everything. Now, you might have noticed that although I did add some CSS, nothing really showed out here, right? Why is that so? Because what is rendering to your browser is only your HTML. And in your HTML, nowhere have you specified that you're supposed to use the CSS. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So after your script tag, you're going to include a link tag. And yeah, this link tag is basically so that you can connect your HTML to the CSS that you will be using for the website. So again, rel style sheet, it's specifying that this link is relevant to the style sheet, and href. So href will be the relative path to your style.css. So for me, it's going to be dot slash, and as it's already suggested, style.css. Now when I save it and go there, you'll see that this bullet is gone, because finally now our HTML has told the browser that this is the link to the style sheet that we will be using for this website, so make use of it. And still, since in my style sheet I specified that I want the list style type to be none, I got rid of the bullets. Okay, so that's how it works. Now let's move ahead, or I'll wait for 20 seconds, make sure that y'all are all with me, and then move ahead. I'll just open both side by side so that, yeah, just have a look. We have included the link tag. We've added just this much CSS, and yeah, that's it. Just get done with this for now. All right, I think I can move ahead. So I'm going to shut this down. Yeah, I only have my some styling to it. So as I said, we use classes and IDs to target elements. So I'm going to use the class that I had given to the input tag. That was, yeah, so sorry, I'll be using it for the division and then the input tag. Okay, I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to be specifying the class first, add to do. And then inside add to do, I want to select the input tag, which has a type equal to text. And then, yeah. So what have I done out here? I selected the add to do. Add to do consists of the entire division in which I have my input and my button. So I selected the entire add to do, and then inside add to do, I nested it with this input tag, which has a type of text. So after I selected my add to do, I selected this input type with a type of text. Yeah. All right. So let's add some styling to it. First, border, none. Just a second. Border none. Border button, a bottom. We give it 3 pixel solid, and I'll give it a hash code of 666. And another thing, outline, again none. And I'm going to give it a font size of 30 pixel. Okay, I'm going to save these changes, and there it is. So what have I done? Border none. So as you saw before, okay, let me just comment out one by one so that you can see what are the changes I'm making. Yeah. So when I had done border none, as you can see, I had all of these. I had a border to my input tag, but I wanted to get rid of it. So for that, border none. Although I did not want borders everywhere, but I did want a border at the bottom. So before that, without the border bottom, this is how it would look. Since I removed the border, with the border bottom, this is how it will look. I added a border at the bottom, which is of 3 pixels. And then outline none. Again, whenever you click on any input tag, there is a border that comes around it. There's an outline to the input tag, and I did not want that. So I got rid of it by saying outline none. And font size 30 pixel, very self-explanatory. I wanted to give it a font size of 30 pixels. So that is what this section of the CSS means. All right. So next we will target this. So for that, no, we'll target the button. I think this seems fine. We'll target the button because this is not looking very nice. So again, to the button, I had added add btn as the ID. Or rather, because, okay, so since we do not have any other button anywhere else, we don't really need to specify it with any ID or anything. We can just directly select the button because if I would just select it by saying button, okay, like this, it would select all the buttons that is there on my HTML. But since I have only one, it doesn't matter, right? It will by default just select this one and no other one because there is only one. So I'll just go with button, and I will also okay, so dot add to do, and then button. So I'm selecting the button with the class of add to do. Yeah, and I'm giving it a font size of, again, 30 pixel. I'm giving it a cursor pointer. I'll give it a border of none, and I'll give it a background. I don't want a background for it, so again, none. Yeah. So as you saw the changes that we made, okay, font size 30 pixel. What it did was it increased the size of this button. Cursor pointer. So before we did this, this is what it looked like. When my cursor, when I took my cursor to the icon, it was just the normal cursor, and this normally does not really indicate anything, right? But when I have a cursor pointer, when you have this and icon, it does specify that this is a clickable icon. So this is what the cursor pointer was for. Border none, same thing as was explained before, and background none. So yeah, that's what was this section of code. And yes, you're done with your CSS as well. And this is what your website looks as of now. So I hope you were with me throughout this session of HTML and CSS. And from now, we'll be going to the JavaScript, because as you can see right now, we just have a static website. It does not really do anything. So the JavaScript part will be handled by Krina. So Krina, over to you.
Okay, so now we will start with the JavaScript part, and my screen is visible, right? Yeah, so we have done as we followed Mahira and we coded for index.html and style.css. So now we will start with the JavaScript part of the project. So right now our website looks something like this. Our project looks something like this. And so we will start with JavaScript. So first, before starting with JavaScript, I would like to mention that JavaScript is a front end as well as a back end language. So for front end, we use DOM. So DOM manipulation, data object manipulation. So now, what is data object manipulation? It defines the logical structure of document and the way a document has to be accessed and manipulated. Okay, so now firstly, we will make a index.js file. Okay, so this JS, we made the index.js file. Now we will connect the HTML to the JS file. So we have to add a script tag. Now there are two ways of adding a JavaScript code. So firstly, we can add it this way. So this will be an internal JS code. I can write the JS code here, and we can use it like this also. And one more thing, that we should always mention the script tag at the end of the HTML code. It is a good practice to mention like Mahira told. We have linked the style.css over here in the starting of the HTML file, but we would like to add this at the end of it. So there are two ways. One is internal and one is external. So for internal, we add this script tag and we write the code here. But for now, we will use external CSS, external JavaScript. So here the source file I mentioned, that is index.js. Okay. Now we will go to the JS part and we will start writing our code. So firstly, we would like to save it, and yeah. So now we will start with the code. Okay, so firstly we will start with mentioning some variables. So first I would like to have a variable known as constant. So here I declared a variable which is named as input, and it is a constant variable. So this is how we declare a variable in JavaScript. So now we have to access the HTML tags and HTML class and IDs using CSS selectors. So we will use document. Now, why do we use document? We use document because when an HTML document is loaded into a web browser, it becomes a document object. So we use document dot query selector. Now, what is a query selector? So now query selector is a method which returns the first CSS selector. So there are many other ways also to access any element, like get element by ID and get element by class, but we will go with query selector. So it will return the first CSS selector. So for now, input, I will take this one. So this input tag, I will use it. I'll put it inside the inverted commas. So we got the input. Now in JavaScript, there is no such compulsion to use semicolon at the end like in C++, but we can put it if you want. It's a good practice. If you want to put it, you can go ahead with it. Now we will declare another variable. So it is const add button. Okay, so now again we will use query selector. Now for add button, we will actually, what we need is this class add to do. We want this button, this button. So we will access the class first by dot add to do. Let me confirm. Okay, add to do, and then we will go to the button add. So we are accessing, like here we mentioned, we went to add to do and we went to button for styling. Similarly here we went to the add to do class and we selected this button. So now this add button, so this variable is implying to this the class, the button of the class add to do. Now we will declare another variable which is to do's. We can give any name. We can give any name to the variable. It's up to you. But I am going ahead with to do's, constant to do's, and so query selector. And for here, we will select the class to do's. We will select this class by putting dot to do's in inverted commas. Okay, so now that we have declared all the variables which we will need, and we will manipulate how to use it, we will manipulate and we will try to make these buttons and everything work, these buttons and this checklist and stuff. And if we add something we wanted to add to our to-do list. Okay, so now I will use add button dot add event listener. Now, what is add event listener? So, event listener is a method which attaches an event handler to a specified element. So, now this is a specified element, add button, and this event listener. So, when I click, okay, the function is click, and I wanted to connect to add to do function. Okay, so now this add button. So, whenever I click this button, I want this function to be executed. Now I have not mentioned this function, I have not declared this function. Now I will start with that function. So this is how we. Okay. So now I have declared this function add to do. So whenever I click this button, this function has to be executed, this add to do function. So this button I'm talking about. So whenever I click this button, I want this function to be executed. So this add event listener does that. So we first declared the constant, then we added this add event listener function. So whenever we click the button, we want this add to do to be executed. So now I will write the add to do function. First, I will declare a constant to do. Similarly, so this is the global variables which I've declared, and this is a local variable to this function. So we can declare it in a similar way. So now I will go with the const to do and input dot value dot trim. Okay, so now what have I done here is the input which we got from here, the input which we will mention here, which we got from the tab which we used, this one. So we will add a task, and the input value which we'll get, we took the input, then dot value, we want the value of it, and that dot trim. What does dot trim do? It removes the extra spaces in the input value which we got. Okay, so now let me do one thing. I will just console dot log to do. All right, now, okay, so now I have written this function, and now I'm supposing that if I add a function over here and I click this button, so this is your console log, all right? So I want the task to be displayed over here. First, you will make sure that you have saved the file, and suppose I add task prepare for cats. And if I add it, see, it should be visible over here in your console. So I'll wait for like 10 seconds to make sure that you are with me till this. Okay, so now there is a chance that someone might give an empty input. So we have to make sure that a user does not give an empty input. So we will add an if else loop over here. So what we'll do is if to do dot length and over here. So I'll just cut it and paste it over here. And if it is else loop, I'll just write the code and then I'll explain it to you. Okay. So now here to do dot length. So this will return in Boolean value. So if the value is more than 0, if value is not 0, so it will be true, and it will the to do will be displayed in the console log. But if no value is entered, so there should be an alert box showing that please enter a task. So let's just save it and try it out. For example, I just added like this. So yeah, so this alert box is appearing which says please enter a task. And if again I add something, cat. So yeah, it's showing over here. So I'll wait for a few more seconds to make sure that you guys are with me. Then we can go ahead with this. Okay, so now we don't want it to actually print it in console log, right? We want it to print over here under this, in this list, like after complete DA. I want it to print it over here. So I will comment out this one. So a shortcut key in VS Code or for commenting out is control plus slash. So now to print it over here, what we are going to use is we will to do dot to do template to do function. So this we haven't yet made it. This to do template we are going to form it next. This is just a function, a constant function, which will help us to add these to dos under this list. Okay, so and we will make the input dot value as null. You can use double inverted or single inverted, it's the same thing. So now if you have entered some value, it will go to the to do template. And if you haven't entered any value, if you have entered the null value, so the alert box will show that please enter a value. And after this, the input value will be null. Once you have so that you can put another value, like you can add another task as well. So now let's just go and define this constant to do template. Okay, so firstly, we will take the to do, the thing which we are the variable which we have declared over here. So we will take the to do and we will define the function. Right. So firstly, constant HTML. I will declare a constant, a variable HTML, and inside these commas, we're gonna put. Wait, I'll show you something. So see, this is the list which we want. Okay, so this is the format, the HTML, the CSS format which we want. Like similarly, the same type we want it under this as well. So we are gonna just copy paste this entire thing because we want the same thing. So I'll just copy paste it. Okay, and I'll put it over here. But here we don't want complete DA. We want to add something which we want other tasks which we want to include. So for that, I will use this dollar sign. Now this dollar sign is not exactly a JavaScript thing. It is a little bit of jQuery. Now you don't have to get very much confused by this. jQuery is a framework of JavaScript. So wait, I'll just add to do over here. So we'll get the to do thing. It's just a shorthand for get element by ID or get element by class or something. So it's just you don't need to get very much confused by this. Now what we're going to do is we have so we have declared a variable which is taking this input in a similar way which was taken before, like the list form. So we have to add it into an inner HTML. We have to add it, like one second, I'll show you. So now we will add another piece of code. Okay, and HTML. All right. So now what is this thing doing is that we have declared to do's over here, this constant to do's, this thing, this class. So the UL tag one. So this entire class is to do's. So now this thing, which whatever we added there will be added. So this plus is actually equal to what does it show? That already existing stuff plus the other stuff which we added. So like already existing stuff is complete DA, and whatever I add, it will be added into this list. Okay, so I think this much is enough. So now let's just go and try it if it's working or not. For cats. Okay, so yeah, it's working. So I added this preparing for cats and it is coming here. I commented that console log thing, so that's why it's not presenting here. If I haven't commented that, then it would have shown here also. So I'll just wait for some seconds to make sure that you are done till here. I hope this much is clear to you guys. Okay, so now I hope you guys are till here. Now we have other two tasks left. We want this delete button to work and this checkbox button to work. So if I press this delete button, I want this task to be completely deleted. And if I press this, if I've done something, I'm done with this. So I just want to press, and I just want ki, okay, this is over. So this task on to-do list is over. So now, firstly, let's go with the delete button. We will try to make this delete button work. Okay, so we will again add to-dos. To-dos is again this class. So we want to delete something from this class. So we are going to take to-dos and add an event listener again. And for click, and we will again declare a function. Let's say delete to-dos. Okay, this one. Okay, so yeah, I have this language, this type is called Camel Case. Like the first word is in the small letters, lowercase, and then the next word which we want to write, like this delete, and is in the uppercase. So yeah, it's just an extra information. You don't. It's not like very important right now. So we added a function. Now next thing is to define that delete to do function. So we have to first define that function. Okay, so function delete to do's. Okay. So right now we will write E. So now what is an E? E is a parameter in an event object. Okay, so which is passed to the function. So so basically this is an event. It's an object. It's an event object which we are going to pass to the function. So now let's just go ahead and write the function. Now I will use the if loop. So if E dot target. E dot target is basically the element which we are talking about here. So E dot target dot class list. Now what is class list? Now class list is something which is like inside the class. Inside Actually it's the classes which we have named. Like for example, this has a class known as delete. So we are basically referring to that. Then we will do contain and delete. Okay, so if the e dot target, the which we are targeting, if that class list contains delete, we want it to. Now I will write it over here. E dot target dot parent element dot remove. Okay. Yeah. So if we click on the button and if it so if we are clicking on this button, this class is containing delete. So we want that parent element. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So we want that parent element, like this, the entire element, this list. This is the parent element. We want it to get. We just want to remove it. So it will just basically remove the entire thing. So now let's just go and try if it's working or it's not working. Okay. So I'll just try to delete this one only. Okay, so it's working. I'll just add another. I'll just add cats, and it's working. So the delete button is working now. So what we did is, similarly, like here, we added an event listener. Then we named a function delete tools. Then we defined the function. Then we we used the if loop. And if the class list contains delete, when we click on this button, it contains delete. So yeah, it will come that, okay, true, that it does contain delete. And then it will remove the parent element. Now, the entire thing which we deleted was the parent element. DS. So yeah, this settle it. Now another thing which we have to make it work is this checklist. So if I've done something, I just want to cross it. Okay, okay, I've done this. So I just want to cross it. So now I'll wait for a few more seconds to make sure that you are okay with this much. And then we will start with the checklist part. Um, so I think we are good to go. So now for line a function named as my function, and I will pass a variable x. Okay. Now I want you guys to do one thing. Yeah, I just want you to go over here, and so this is the input thing. All right. So like it will make sure that if it is checked or not checked. I just want you to add. This is sort of like inline JavaScript. So when I click this, I want this to go to my function, and in bracket I just want to keep this. Now, this is a keyword which refers to an object in which the function belongs. So, and okay, so if you remember, we have copy pasted this thing over here as well. So I just want you to copy paste this also over there. Yeah, and just save it. Basically, what we did here is that whenever we click on this checkbox on click, I want this to go to the function which I'm going to define right now. This is my function. Okay, so let's just write the function. Okay, so we will keep an if loop here also. So if dot checked is there, if a checked class is added, if the element which we want is if it is checked, what I want to do is I want to x dot class list. Class, this is a similar thing which we used over here. The class list, the classes which are there in that element. So I want to add checked. Yeah. Now I will put an else loop. If that thing is not checked, if this is not checked, so if I have clicked it, it means it is checked, and if I have not clicked, so it's not checked. So I just want to remove the from I want to remove checked from the class list. Here also I will make it in the first blue. Okay, so yeah, okay. So what I have done is I have added, so yeah, so whenever I check it, if it is checked, it will return true. So it will execute this line of code key. It will add checked into the class list, and if it is not checked, it will just remove checked from the class list. So now I will just put console log and check if it's working or not. I'll add it over here as well. Okay, so now just save it and let's just go and check that if it's working or it's not working. Let me just add some task cats. Also, I'll add it. Okay. So yeah, I have checked it. So it's showing that, okay, there is a class, it's added. The class named checked is added. And now when I uncheck it, it goes away. So we are sure that it's working even here, even here. So, okay. Now what we want to do is we want to add a line through over here. We just want key, okay, if I've done this task, I just want to delete it. I just want to cross it. Okay, I've done it. So what will I have to do is I will have to go to style.css and I will add another selector like dot checked. Now, why did I add dot checked over here? Because this piece of code will add class name called checked if it is checked. Like if I've ticked the thing, then it will add called checked. Okay, so I will just span. Now, what is this plus thing? The plus is spans the next adjacent sibling. Like for example, where okay, so we have to add check over here. So which is the next adjacent sibling? The span thing. So I want the a cross over here, a line through over here. So I have added plus and span. Now I will add text decoration line through. Okay. So what I did was, if it is checked, this thing is checked. As I mentioned before, that a class called check will be added to that, and the next adjacent. So this plus is the next adjacent sibling. So the span is the next adjacent sibling, right? So a text decoration of line through will be visible. So now let's just go and check if it's working or it's not working. Well, I hope I've saved it. Okay. Yeah. So if I add cats again. And okay, cool, it's working. So if I've completed, I will just cross it and okay. And if I want to delete it, I can delete it, I can add it. So yeah, it's done. It's done. If you want to add something like I have to prepare for cats, then I have to do web development. Okay, so if I've done it, I can cross it and even I can delete it. So yeah, so this is done. So I hope you guys are with me. You have coded till here. If you want, you can comment this console log line. You don't need it. It's just to check that okay, if the logic which you applied it's working or it's not working. So I hope this much is clear for now. So you have one project of web development with you now, which is to-do list. And I hope you are little bit confident with this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Actually, this is a vast thing. So there's so much to learn, but this is just the start. So you can just uh, just learn this much. You can have a project, and I hope you guys understood till this much. And now I would request Mahira to start with. Now there will be a little bit introduction about the backend technology. So right now, what all we did was the front end technologies, the thing which we saw here. Now the client side, as I mentioned in this very start of the session. Now we will look which technologies are used in the server side of the technology. So now I request Myra to start briefly explain these topics.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? All right. So just give me a second. We need to share a few slides before we begin. Okay. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible now. Is it? All right, so I'll begin. So yeah, coming to backend technologies. So when you come to backend technologies, you'll be talking about what would you be building on the server side. So for server side, we have a few frameworks such as Node.js, Flask, and Django being the most popular. You can write your server side applications in a few other languages, for example, Golang. And there are quite a few other ones. But if you are, let's say you are familiar with Python and you are just a beginner into the domain of web development, then definitely Flask would be your go-to. And if you are familiar with JavaScript, then it would be Node.js. Now if you talk about like for in terms of projects, if you have to build projects really quickly and you're just a beginner, you're very well equipped with Python, and let's say you want to integrate ML models, so then you will really want to go with Flask or Django. Django is slightly more advanced compared to Flask, but definitely if you're thinking of integrating ML models into your project, then Flask would be a go-to. Else, if you think of how it is on the industry side, then it's definitely Node.js, because Node.js, as you know, you must have heard of the term NPM, the Node package manager, one of the biggest package managers that's out there. So Node.js in general has a big community, a lot of resources, and that's why it's recommended or rather widely used out there at industry levels. So a brief description: Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. It's an open source server environment and allows you to run JavaScript on the server. And it has a set of built-in modules which help us in making cool projects. As I said, npm, a huge package manager, and lots of functionalities. So moving on, databases. Now you can classify your databases as, let's say, SQL. It's more for relational databases, whereas a NoSQL database would be hierarchical. So it has key value pairs. And an example of a SQL database, MySQL, a NoSQL database, MongoDB. Now, if you're a beginner, then when you're writing your backend, your entire queries for the database, when you're querying into the database, you will have something known as an ODM. For example, in Node.js, the ODM that is used is Mongoose. What is an ODM? It's an object data modeling language. So basically, you can say it's a package. Again, Mongoose is kind of a package you're using to be able to communicate with the database more ease. So that's what's there for MongoDB, and then you have a few for SQL as well. Like I think it's SQLite or something that you SQLizer. I'm not sure. It's for Node.js, the ODM for SQL, and that's how you go about integrating databases into your backend server. And yeah, as I said, MongoDB, it uses JSON-like documents with optional schemas. So as I mentioned, it's hierarchical. So there's going to be key value pairs, and generally, as a beginner, anyone would start off with MongoDB. But again, it depends on your project. If your project has more of relational schemas, and again, in MySQL, you won't really be in SQL. Rather, you won't really be able to. The data is not really dynamic. You won't be the querying is not as simple as it is when you're using a NoSQL database. Therefore, for a beginner, it is recommended that you start off with MongoDB. And okay, so now that I completed talking a little bit about what you can use on the server side and what you can use for your databases, we'll move on to Git. So Krina will give you all a brief overview of what Git is, and then the code that we wrote, the to-do list, we'll be pushing that to GitHub, and I'll give you all we'll write a few Git commands and we'll see how that works. And at the end, we will also be deploying the project that we made on using GitHub Pages. Okay, so over to you, Krina.
Okay, so now, firstly, I would like to know from you guys that do you guys have any idea that what is Git and GitHub? Any you can mention it in the chat box. I'll just if anybody has any idea regarding what is Git and GitHub, you can give a guess, or you might have heard it somewhere. Okay, so like Git, I don't see any messages. Okay, so I'll start. So now Git is basically a version control system. Now, what is a version control system? It is a class of system which is responsible for managing the changes which you make in a project or in a program or in a document. So now, uh, like when you want to work in a project in a team, so this Git is used so that we can keep track of all the changes which are made in that project, and what all things are done by what other programmers and everything. So if you want to collaborate, or you want to coordinate some work, so basically Git is used there. So in open source programming, you might have heard about open source project and open source programming, where more than one developer or programmer is working on that project. So in that, there Git is used. So now, coming to GitHub, can you change the slide, Myra? You can download the link which was down there. Just can you just go back once? I'm sorry, to the Git slide. Yeah. So the link which is down here, you can download Git from there. Now moving on to GitHub. Now Git and GitHub are totally completely different things. Git is a version control system, whereas GitHub is a hosting platform. GitHub provides you a platform wherein you can push the Git repositories. Now, what is a repository? Repository, in simple terms, is a project. So, if you are working on a project in a team, so you can push it to GitHub. So, GitHub is the largest host for the source code, and the purpose of GitHub is to create, manage, and publish your work. So now Mahira will demonstrate this Git and GitHub, and you will be able to host your project into your GitHub profiles.
It should take you around 2 minutes to do that, so I'll wait in the meantime. And along with installing Git, make sure that you go to GitHub and sign up. I have already made an account on Git, so I already have one, but you might not, or you might be having. If you don't, please go ahead and make an account quickly, and then we can move ahead and start with Git. We can get started. Okay, let me know in the chat section once all are done. Again, once all are done, just let me know so that I know when to start. Okay, if anyone has already made an account, just let me know if you all have ever used Git on GitHub before in the live chat. Okay, I'll wait for another 20 seconds and then I'll begin. So I guess I can start. Okay, so I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna search for git bash. So everyone open git bash, and this is what it should look like for you. I'll just go and increase the font a bit so that you all can see it. Uh, yeah, I guess this should be good enough. Okay, so the first command we will be typing is git minus minus version. Right, so what did this command do? It basically just told us the version of Git that we have installed in our local computer is 2.34. All right, so as Krina previously explained, Git is a version control system. So what it's going to do basically is that you have a project. We just made a project. We made the to-do list. So any changes that I make further to it, Git is going to keep a track of all of them. It's from from my local PC, from my local project. So any changes I make in my project will all be tracked by Git. Now the next command we'll be using is cd, and I'll cd into desktop. All right, so what is cd? Cd is change directory, so I'm basically changing the path that I am currently in, so that's desktop. And the next command I'll be using is ls. So what does ls do? Ls is I am in is desktop. So it just gave me a list of all of those directories that I have in my desktop. Next, you can see here I have a to-do list. I'm going to cd into that. You can use tab to autocomplete. Yeah, so now I'm in my to-do list. All right, so I'm going to minimize this. So here I had my to-do list. So from now, what we're going to do, like from here on, what we're going to be doing is all of this code that we have written, we're going to be it's now going to be traceable by Git. So we're going to initialize this Git repository. Now you have two options. Either you can use Git bash, or if you want, you can just open the terminal, the inbuilt terminal in VS Code. The shortcut is Control and tilde, or else you just go up here, terminal and new terminal, and you're going to get it here. So everything I'm writing in Git bash, you can do the same thing in the inbuilt VS Code terminal as well. I'll be doing it in Git bash for this session. Okay, so the first command, you will git init. All right, so what does this say? Initialize empty Git repository. So first, this wasn't a Git repository, right? We not initialized this. What we have done now is we've made all of this code traceable by Git code. Okay, so from now on, any changes we make are going to be tracked by Git. The next command, okay, before that, yeah. So you have just probably made your GitHub account, and your PC doesn't really have any connection. Like this Git it's just local on your PC, but it probably doesn't know that you have a GitHub account out there where you probably want your project to be, you want your folders to be there, to be hosted there. So for that, you're going to configure some settings. So I'm going to do git config minus minus user dot name. I'm going to set it to my GitHub username. Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it was not minus minus config. It's just git config user dot name to my GitHub username. Yes. And I'm also going to change my email ID, git config user dot email, to the email that I have used to make my GitHub account. Yeah, there's some perks out there of having a really long name. User dot email. Yeah, so this is what you're going to go ahead and do. I'm just going to clear all of this. Just make sure that I've done these two steps. These two steps are really important. Otherwise, you won't be able to connect to your GitHub. Have a quick look at this, and then I'll just clear the screen. Okay, I hope everyone is done with this. Now next. So how can I connect all of this code that I have written out here to my GitHub? So first thing, let's check something. git status. All right, so there are untracked files. So how GitHub works is basically there will be a staging area. The staging area is the area where you're going to put your code out there. You're going to add your code out there so that it is, it's understandable, or rather it's trackable by Git code. And after that, there is a staging area. The staging area is once you have finalized that, yes, I'm committing this code and this is the code that I want to push out there on Git. So there is an adding area, there's a staging area. So out here, what I'm getting out of my Git status is that I'm on a default branch of master. I haven't made any commits yet. So I haven't staged anything to be pushed out there on GitHub yet. And there are untracked files. So there are files that I haven't added yet. So they aren't accessible by Git. They can't be traced by Git code rather. So before we move on to we move further with Git, we need to create a repository. So go to your GitHub handle and click out here on the plus icon and create a new repository. This is what the page should look like once you do that. I'm going to create a repository. I'm going to name the repository, let's say WebDev 101, because that's the name of this workshop. But since it's a to-do list, you can just name it, to-do list, because it's a project that you're building. So name it as to-do list. I already have a repository that is to-do list. I won't prefer naming that. I'll name it as WebDev 101. All right. Yeah, there's a description that you can provide out here. A simple to-do list is what I'll just put out here. Made using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'm going to make it a public repository. And for now, I'm not going to add a README. A README is basically a documentation to the project that you've made. A Git Ignore is a file where .Git Ignore is a file where you enter the names of all of those files which you do not want are pushed on GitHub. So there are, when you get further into backend technologies, there'll be a lot of secret keys and a lot of API keys and all that you do not want, or passwords that you do not want everyone out there who has access to your GitHub handle to have a look at. So you will add those files in your .git ignore, so that whenever you're pushing anything from your local repository, it is not visible out there on GitHub to anyone. And choose a license. Again, that is an open source practice that we use, but we do not really need to do that out here because it's a simple beginner project. So I will just simply go ahead and create a repository. Okay, so once I created a repository, the repository is created. What is a repository? A repository is just simply the project that you're making on GitHub. The repository means the place where all of my code will be available out there to everyone in the world, whoever has access to GitHub. Okay, so I'm going to open Git Bash and all of these commands that are out here side by side. All right, so here are a few steps that GitHub also gives you before you're starting any project, and when you're trying to push code to GitHub. So we already did this, right? Git init. As I said, we're not going to add a README. So now Git commit. All right. Before I commit, as I said, I need to add all of the code that I have written, as they said that this is untracked. So I need to do something called git add dot. What does git add do? It makes all of the code I've written traceable by Git code. What is a dot? Dot means all of the files that are in the current folder I am in, which is desktop to-do list. So to-do list is the folder that I am in, is the directory that I am in, and I want all of the files in it to be traced by Git. So I'm going to do git add dot. Okay, that's done. Then I'm going to make my first commit. So git commit -m. -m stands for message. So you're going to have to give a message, right? That what is it that you're committing, so that it's because everyone out there is seeing that whenever you're adding something, there has to be a certain description provided as to what is it that you added. Because these commits, you'll be making any change to the code, and later you will have to push it to GitHub so that everyone can see you've made the change. So it has to be descriptive so that everyone understands what is it that you're doing. So I will just say, for now, since we have completed to-do list. That is my commit. Okay, so git commit -m completed to-do list. Okay. Yeah, so I have something known as a GPG key, but you all might not be having it, which is you don't need it right now. I had it, that's why I had to enter that password. But I think it should be a direct step for you all. Okay, so it will commit. Next step, we create a branch. What is a branch? Okay, let's just see if git branch right now. Git branch master. So currently we are on the master branch. Now let's go to what is branches. So let's take the scenario. I made a project and I put it out there on GitHub for everyone to see. I have a friend of mine who has had a look at my project and thinks that there could be a feature that is added to my project. And my friend starts writing code for it, and it's working well on his local on his remote PC, and on everything is working fine for him. But when he adds all of this code to the main branch, or rather the code that is there on GitHub, it's causing some error. Now, generally, anything that is deployed would be the code that is already on your main branch. If someone is coming and adding a feature to your main branch and that has a bug, it will be available to everyone out there. Everyone who is using your application will, have to face that error or that bug as a result of whatever your friend added in terms of a feature. So, what is the solution to it? Solution is branches. So you create a separate branch. So there is a main branch. So you make a separate branch. In that separate branch you can keep changing whatever you want. You can say it's like a sort of a separate dimension or a separate track of the entire code, where like you have copied the entire main code and now you're adding to it. So once you're done working on the main branch, or sorry, on the whatever master or whichever the other branch that you have created for yourself, let's say the development branch or add feature branch, once you've completed working there, you can open a pull request or a merge request. Okay. So once like whoever is the maintainer of the repository, they can have a look at whatever it is that you have added. Now they can again pull all of that code that you have written in a separate branch and try it on their local PC and see if it's causing any problems. Once they see if your code is perfectly fine, then you can merge a separate branch into your main branch, and that's how the entire dynamic is. And that's the reason why we use branches. It's just so that we're not adding any unnecessary bugs or any error in our main code. All right, so for that we need branches. So I'm going to create a separate branch. The default branch is master git branch -m main. Okay, next comes git remote add origin. Let's discuss what is a remote. All right, so git is on my local PC, right? I have installed Git on my computer, but it has no idea that there is something called as GitHub, and there are a lot of other repositories and projects out there. How will Git communicate with something that is out there, which is available for everyone to see? So what Git does is it makes something known as a remote. Every repository that is out there on GitHub, they are actually called remotes. And these remotes are added something known as an origin. In fact, origin, you can say, is probably the shorthand for this entire URL that you're using. Every time I am referring to a specific remote, or rather a repository out there, I don't have to specify the entire URL. I can just call it origin. You can say origin is the shorthand for the entire URL, but that's what this means. Git remote add origin. That means there's this remote. There is a remote which basically kind of means a repository out there. This is the URL for it, and I'm going to refer to it as origin. And from origin, now I will start creating all of my separate branches, and that's what this means. So I'm going to do git remote add origin, and you can just you can just copy this entire thing. It's basically the HTTP link for your website, and I'll just paste it and git remote add origin. All right, so now that is done. So what have we done until now? We have added all of our code. We have committed the code. We have staged it to a level. So commit is basically like, okay, this is what I want out there. Now I can't take it back. Okay. I have made a separate branch. I have added a remote out there. Now my Git on my local PC has an idea that there is a remote out there with this URL. Now I'm going to push my code to GitHub. So I'm going to do git push -u origin main. This might cause some errors. I'm not really sure, but might be asked to sign in. This doesn't happen for everyone, but I have signed in. All of my code has been pushed. Now you refresh the page. Your code should be available out here. Yes. So all of my code is available from my local PC. I have been able to push all of it on GitHub, and give me a thumbs up in the live chat if you have been able to do the same and if you are with me. I'll be waiting here for a while because that was a lot that we just did. In case if you haven't, been along, just tell me if there was any command that you missed or if there's anything that you want to clear. Okay, so I'm not getting anything in the live chat. So I'm assuming everyone's with me. All right. So I think I can move ahead. I hope you all have got the code pushed out there on GitHub. So you could see probably the commit that we did complete a to-do list. So any change that I now henceforth make to my project will all be displayed out here once I push my code. Um, Next, as I said, we will be okay. Just a few terminologies that I will use about Git so that we get a plain idea about what Git is. GitHub is rather fork. Fork is basically used when you want to when you want to clone, when you want to make a copy of somebody else's repository. So as I said, I have a friend who wants to add a feature to my project, so we can't come and directly add it in my in my repository because he wouldn't have access to it, right? It is just me who can make changes to it because I already set the configurations for this repository. When we did git config minus minus user dot sorry, not minus minus, just user dot name. So we'd already set the configurations up. So I don't want to add my friend as a collaborator or anything, so my friend does not have access to it. So how can he contribute to my project? He will fork my repository, and that fork will make a separate copy of this entire code in his as a local repository for him. He can clone first, so that as I said, like there could be some issues when you're directly committing to the main branch, and he can make a separate branch, and he can start working out there and adding whatever features it is. Once he feels that everything it is that he could have added is done, he can make a he can open a pull request, and then I can have a look at it and merge it. So that's how the dynamic of forking, adding a cloning, adding a branch, making a pull request, merging a pull request, resolving conflicts. So there can be a lot of conflicts, right? He might have made some changes to the code which are not matching with the main branch that I have on my repository. So we're going to have to resolve all of those conflicts when we merge the branches as well. So these are a few terminologies that you are going to be familiar with once you start using GitHub more and more. All right. So as I said in the beginning that we will also be deploying our site using GitHub Pages. So everyone now move on to the settings. And when you'll scroll right to the bottom, you'll see this thing out here, GitHub Pages. And now it's a separate page altogether. So just click on check it out here. Once again, I'll just repeat for anyone who missed it out. Go to settings, go to the settings section of your repository, and go right to the bottom and go to GitHub Pages. All right, in GitHub Pages, you will select the branch. I have only one branch, main, so I'll select it and save it. And I'm going to choose a theme. Theme to be published at, okay. So let's give this a while. This will probably come, or probably I have lost access now. Mm-mm. Okay, let's give this a while. This will probably, let me know if actually this worked for y'all because this is the way it goes. And that was like a brief overview on Git and GitHub. Yeah, this generally does take a while to get the entire page out there, but this will definitely work. I'm very sure about it. Yeah, so that was all about Git and GitHub and how you can start using it. And like now from here you will start with your open source journey once you are familiar with some of the basic Git commands, making a repository, forking a repository, making a pull request. Okay. Okay, so I guess now it's finally working. As I said, it takes a while. Yeah, here you go. All right. I would have really been worried if this wouldn't have worked today. But yeah, it did. So your site will have been deployed using GitHub Pages, and that's about it. So we made a website using CSS, HTML, JavaScript. That's the basic to your front end beginning to your front end development. Further, when you move into front end development, you can use a lot of frameworks, React being the most popular one. I'm sure everyone might have heard of it already. And yeah, so we used CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. We like made a static to-do list website. We pushed it on Git. We had a look at some of the backend technologies, and then we installed Git, made an account on GitHub. We pushed the code from our local repository to GitHub, and we finally deployed our website using GitHub Pages. And yes, that was it for today. And if you all have any okay, just let me know if the page deployed for you all as well. Okay, so I'm waiting for the questions to come in. So there could just be three possibilities. Either y'all are too shy to ask the questions, or y'all are all sleeping because it's Saturday, or else we explain everything too well and y'all don't have any questions at all. Okay. Is it worth learning web development? Okay. Is it worth learning web development when there are many platforms like WordPress, Figma that make our work easier without much effort? Yes, it is worth learning web development because WordPress, Figma is for UI UX, so I don't think I'll consider that. But WordPress, yes, you can make your static websites out there, but there's a lot of there's a lot of drawbacks out there in terms of your data, your privacy, security, and in general at the industry level, when you're making websites, nobody will make a WordPress website. They will always make it from scratch because there will be a lot of technologies and a lot of new frameworks that you can always make use of in your websites. And web development is not just the beginning for making websites. There are a lot of other technologies that you will always need later on. For example, Git and GitHub, you will always need to learn. So even if it's not just the web domain for you, Git and GitHub is necessary. You will have to it is something that everyone should have a general knowledge about. So yes, it is worth learning web development, even if there are sites like WordPress out there.
Is there any other questions? You guys can ask if you guys have any other questions.
Which backend framework is recommended for web development specifically? Okay, Karina, you want to take on that?
You can go ahead with it.
All right. So there isn't, I wouldn't recommend, like, there isn't anything, in general, I can just recommend that you should use this. It totally depends on the project that you're going to use. So if your project is probably having some sort of ML integrations, then definitely a framework that is written in Python will be advisable. So you could probably go for Flask or Django there. But if, if you're looking for something that's more scalable, it has more resources, you want to write it more easily, then definitely Node.js will be the one that you should go for. So again, I'll say it totally depends on your project. It has there's really no general answer to that. And everyone, please make sure you all fill in the attendance form.
And I hope you were able to host
Yeah.
your to-do list on
Yeah, it,
GitHub.
it, it will take a while. I mean, I was pretty gutted when it was
Yeah.
showing me 404, but it always takes a while, so it will deploy, don't worry.
Okay, so I think that's it, right?
Yeah, any more questions? Let us know quickly. All right, then I guess
Yeah.
no more
Make
questions.
sure that you fill the attendance form,
Yes.
which is there in the chat.
All right, then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
all enjoy the session. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah. Bye. Take care.